60 years of HCD, from building codes to funding to accountability. HCD has worked to help make California a place where its residents can live, work, and play in healthy communities of opportunity. HCD's story officially began in 1965, but housing had been on state leaders' minds for decades. In the early 20th century, California began to address unhealthy and unsanitary housing conditions. The passing of the California Tenement House Act in 1909 set minimum requirements for health and fire safety in multifamily housing. New laws from the 1920s and 30s focused on land use regulations and building standards and enabled the creation of public housing authorities. The 1940s and 50s brought about the redevelopment of blighted areas to address post-war housing shortages. The 1960s brought civil rights into housing through the California Fair Housing Act, one of the most significant and sweeping laws to protect the right of people of color to purchase housing without discrimination. All these reforms helped forge a path to HCD's creation in September of 1965. HCD was created to bring coherence to the state's approach to housing. Since its inception, the department has grown and evolved to establish sound policy, fund local solutions, and enforce compliance with state housing law. In HCD's first decade, California's modern housing framework began to take shape, with new laws requiring cities and counties to assess housing needs at all income levels. The 1980s brought about the strengthening of housing element law and the Regional Housing Needs Act, which set housing need numbers for each region and required jurisdictions to accommodate their fair share of housing. The 80s also brought about the landmark Housing Accountability Act to prevent local governments from blocking compliant housing developments. In this decade, HCD would also gain responsibilities over manufactured and mobile home parks, overseeing everything from registration and titling to park inspections. In the 1990s, HCD expanded its role in reviewing and enforcing housing elements. The state would also see new bonds that helped fund affordable housing, protections for affordable housing in coastal areas, billions invested in affordable housing by way of redevelopment agencies, and a renewed focus on California's growing homeless population. At the start of the 21st century, HCD gained more authority to reject inadequate housing elements. Cities were now required to build housing rather than just plan for it, and increasingly faced lawsuits when they unfairly denied housing projects. In the early 2000s, the housing bubble burst, and the state responded with foreclosure prevention programs and tenant protections. Voters passed propositions for affordable housing, supportive housing, and infrastructure.
Thank you, California.
Under the administration of Governor Gavin Newsom, housing in California has been brought into focus in a way never before seen. Addressing housing affordability and the homelessness crisis has been about local partnerships and accountability. Governor Newsom's 2021-22 state budget brought about the creation of HCD's Housing Accountability Unit, offering guidance and technical assistance, investigating noncompliance, overturning unlawful denials, unlocking housing approvals, and modeling the best in government transparency. When the COVID-19 pandemic required a fast response, Governor Newsom directed HCD to pioneer Homekey, funding local governments and tribal communities to acquire hotels, motels, and other buildings and rapidly convert them into permanent and interim homes for people exiting homelessness at a previously unimaginable scale. Governor Newsom also incentivized communities to cut red tape, reduce costs, and adopt growth-minded policies through HCD's pro-housing designation and the pro-housing incentive programs. This marked a strategic shift that rewarded not just the number of units created, but the policy environment that make the homes possible. In this, HCD's 60th year, Governor Newsom established the California Housing and Homelessness Agency, responsible for coordinating the full spectrum of California's housing needs, from efforts to prevent and end homelessness to supporting low-income renters and first-time homebuyers. The agency will also support civil rights protections, including efforts to advance and enforce fair housing and equal employment opportunities. Under the Newsom administration, HCD has grown as a proactive, accountability-driven department. HCD's impact can be seen across the state through declining numbers of Californians experiencing unsheltered homelessness and in the many seniors, veterans, families, and tribal members in safe, permanent homes. This year, HCD celebrates 60 years of housing, 60 years of community development, and 60 years of making California a better place for its residents. Because HCD is where foundations begin.